CG Tuscaloosa. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. A Town Square media station.
Alabama 1st and 10 on the 12. Again, Houston. He's got a hole. He's over. Alabama touchdown.
I'm just wondering if your listeners know how good a football player you were. I can still see you playing that fullback, knocking those players out of the way. And I believe I could have run behind you.
Martin, I can remember when we came to summer and you were playing fullback up there. And I saw you in the weight room and watched you work out in the weight room. If you were strong enough to pick up the whole weight room. I wanted to fix it, and I run it back to the biggest mistake we ever made.
The Martin Houston Show with national championship winning fullback Martin Houston, giving you 1 hour of intense, hard-hitting analysis from an insider's perspective. It's time for the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good morning. Welcome into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier on a free-for-all Friday. It is a great day to be alive, great opportunity for us to get together and have a little conversation around the sporting world. This is kind of the official transition for us from college football ending with the national championship game on Monday, and chance for us to begin to not just keep talking football, but even bring in more conversation around other sports. But we'll use today to kind of wrap up this week and the conversation for this week, and lots of topics and things that we can get to on this Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, a great opportunity for us to have some fun conversations, get things stirred up a little bit. I can remember those Friday the 13th days where we used to make them a big deal, and I know it was never really a big deal in our house with my kids growing up. But Joe, did you all ever have any fun times around Friday the 13th?
Oh, no. My parents stayed away from all that.
Yeah, ditto. But I can tell you, when I was younger, I was one of those that didn't necessarily do what my parents wanted. And I would sneak and watch the movies and then be terrified. Kind of an interesting dilemma there, but yeah, I'm sure my kids probably did some stuff I didn't want them to do too. So, but anyway, Friday the 13th, we got a great show lined up for you. We'll be bringing X in just a moment. Here's some topics, man. I mean, like I said, we can do free for all Friday, fast pace, rapid fire, and get to a lot of topics, or we can dig in on specific topics. So if you're out there listening right now and you want to bring a topic to the conversation, you can always do that by calling us on the Alabama One hotline at 205-342-9904. That's the Alabama One hotline, 205-342-9904. Or you can put your topic in chat and we can talk about it. But here's some of the things that I have that we can talk about this week. One is we didn't really get to talk about it, but after Alabama's Sugar Bowl win, I want to talk about those young wide receivers. And with the young wide receivers, what brought that topic back to my conversation is Alabama got a commitment from a sophomore down in South Alabama, Saraland's Mr. Ryan Williams. And Mr. Ryan Williams was named Mr. Football for the state of Alabama, the first sophomore to ever receive that honor. So it kind of made me circle back to the wide receiver conversation as a possibility. The transfer portal. Will Nick Saban use a transfer portal this year? We've not heard him talk about it. in terms of what's going on, but he did made a little dabble into it. What will we get, a quarterback, or what would you list as a need position going into 2023 that Saban still may go to the portal? Is quarterback off the board? The self-serving, I call it the self-serving coaches poll. If you saw, nothing points it out more than Saban and Kirby's vote in the coaches poll, which I don't know if those two actually vote. I know a lot of time the coaches aren't the ones that actually vote, but they kind of let people know where they want to do it. But anyway, the coaches poll, self-serving in terms of what we saw there. We can look at the KPIs and do a comparison between Alabama and Georgia, since we're saying Georgia is the new standard. And we say we've kind of figured out the KPIs that Saban filters through his process. We can do a rundown on those KPIs and compare Georgia and Alabama and give them a grade and see if Georgia stands above in any of those, stands alone in any of them, there's close, etc., or ground to be made up. How did you feel about the fact that we've been talking about coordinators? We need to change coordinators all year long. And yesterday, Dabo, it comes out, Dabo fires his offensive coordinator, and in the same breath, you find out that he's hired Garrett Riley as an offensive coordinator. Hey, and then you look at that and go, hey, is Alabama still going to do anything with their coordinators? Nothing has happened, no movement there. And how does that make you feel? And then, of course, we're going to talk some basketball with Alabama having a big game against LSU on tomorrow. Chance for Alabama to continue their undefeated run through the SEC. But that makes me wonder about a couple of things. Is Alabama going to get is Alabama in threat of losing Nate Oates? Is this a one-year trick pony because Nate Oates is going to be out of here? Does it concern you that there seems to be a cooling off of that future stadium or coliseum for basketball? And we're going to use the supply chain in terms of what that means. Or is there something else behind it? Could it be that Alabama football is wanting more money and wanting some things done, and basketball keeps getting put on the back burner? What do we need to do there? So there's a lot to get to. X even wanted to talk about Georgia fans pushing Stetson Bennett as the greatest quarterback in college football history. Does he have a case? Do we look at that and say, look at it, look what he did, look what he accomplished, and give him that title? And also one other thing that I looked at, like I told you, it's a lot we can get to, man, and we'll get to it eventually over the offseason at some point or another, but we can get to it today in a rapid fire fashion if you want to. One last thought that I had, X, is when you look at Georgia two-peating, repeating back-to-back, I went back and looked, and it's almost laughable at what Alabama and Georgia, Alabama and Clemson had to go through to get their repeat versus what Georgia had to go through. Alabama had to beat a Clemson team. Alabama had to beat a Georgia team. So it's kind of laughable. It's a lot to get to. Anywhere you want to start, X, we'll get to you in just a moment. But before we do that, remember that this is the day that the Lord has made, so let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. Free for All Friday is off and running on the Martin Hughes Show with Martin and Xavier. Good morning, X. What's on your mind, sir?
Good morning. Doing well. How are you?
Doing well. Any of that just jump out at you, man? You just want to gnaw into it this time?
Yeah, I really got to get into the the Georgia fans saying Stetson Bennett is the greatest college football quarterback of all time. I think it's a little ridiculous. If you want to put him in the conversation for greatest walk-on of all time, hey, he's got it. I think he passes guys like Brian Burrowsworth from Arkansas, Jordy Nelson from Kansas State. As far as college career goes, you can't knock the 2 national championships. Being a key part of that as the quarterback, but just also his play on the field. But we're talking about greatest quarterbacks of all time, and I've seen people go, well, who has a better resume? Well, you can say AJ McCarron. AJ McCarron only won 1 SEC championship, won 2 national championships, and has better career numbers. You can definitely go Tim Tebow, 2 national championships and a Heisman. Matt Leinart, 2 national championships, a repeat. Both AJ and Matt's being back-to-backs, and Matt has a Heisman. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, you're going to take him over Peyton Manning in the SEC? No. You're going to take him over any of Alabama's quarterbacks, Bryce Young. Even though he has the team accomplishments, he doesn't have the individual accomplishments that Bryce has. I mean, and that's just SEC. Then you spread. You're going to take him over Johnny Manziel on the field, not the off the field stuff, but the on the field stuff. There's a lot of things that just kind of made me go, hey, let's pump the brakes, let's slow down, let's really dig into what it means to be the greatest quarterback of all time at the college football level.
Hey, Joe, what's your thoughts? See, excuse me. When you look at it from a standpoint, I guess the question becomes criteria, X. Why do we consider guys the greatest? Number of championships most of the time?
Yeah. It tends to be the
and accolades. He may be the most decorated, potentially, other than coming up short on the Heisman. In the biggest games, I'm just giving you the other side. If you're a Georgia fan, he may be the most decorated. He has 4 college football playoffs MVP. There's not been, and didn't he win offensive player of the game against LSU this year too? So 5 of the 6 championship games that he played in, he was the offensive MVP, right? If I'm not mistaken. I know he won all 4, every game he played in on that level, and all of that. So they can look at that and say, look at the decorations, because we Alabama fans consider Barrett Jones one of the greatest to ever play here because of his recognition and awards, right?
But those are like, in my opinion, you have to look at it. You have to be careful when you do that, because AJ didn't have an opportunity for the playoffs, and what would that have done? AJ might have gotten a three-peat if they had the college football playoffs.
He probably would have. He probably. What I'm saying though, X, is that's kind of the whole thing. We give guys the record for rushing titles when Herschel Walker's rushing title was based on 11 games and Derrick Henry was based on 15 games. Passing records are based on 15 games, and like Will Anderson, where he's at, he got to play 14, 15 games a year. Derek Thomas' record only goes through 11 games times 3 seasons, so 33 games is Derek Thomas's record. I'm giving you the other side, but here's the question: when you
I definitely understand that.
Here's the question: if I gave you Tim Tebow, I gave you Vince Young, and I gave you Stetson Bennett, and said any era of college football, any offense, anytime, would you take Stetson Bennett?
No.
There you go. name. You see what I'm saying? Like if you didn't know, if you didn't look at the end. Now he may be he's one of the greatest companies, but that also leads me into the repeat of college football playoffs. They have now exalted that to be greater than any repeat. You know, like first one to repeat in college football playoffs because they're saying it's tougher to do that, and so. They're saying it's tougher to repeat in college football playoffs. Look at what the committee gave once Georgia got past Ohio State. Their championship repeat was based on beating TCU. Who did Alabama have to beat to win their repeat? Twice.
LSU and Notre Dame.
No. I'm saying Alabama lost to Clemson twice in a repeat effort, right?
Yeah.
Which Clemson was the up-and-coming version of Georgia now. So, and who did Clemson lose to in their repeat attempt?
LSU.
So, with one of the greatest offensive players ever. And then Alabama's next repeat attempt was stopped by Georgia. Georgia's repeat attempt was who? TCU, the absolute worst beatdown ever, which leads me to my next conversation is that self-serving coaches poll where TCU may be the only team that could lose multiple games and never fall in the poll. How could Kirby Smart go and vote TCU number 2 after he beat them 65-7 in his prior game? He got away by the skin of his teeth and an awkward kick against a team that he ranked number 4. So self-serving, but Saban on the other hand had his team ranked number 2. So they're both self-serving in that sense. But we're going to get back to some more conversation on the other side. Love to get your thoughts in on it. Stetson Bennett is probably the most decorated guy in the modern era from a quarterback standpoint. He will have a movie where some of these other guys want. So he'll be talked about for years to come. Do we disqualify or do we put an asterisk beside him because he got a COVID year with an extra year to play? Do we put a fact that he is older than 5 starting NFL playoff quarterbacks still playing at the college level? Lots of things that you can do that you could put that gives an asterisk to it. But nevertheless, Stetson Bennett, kudos to the young man for fighting through and doing what he did, but he is not the greatest quarterback in college football history of all time. There's quite a few guys that would have that title before him. And Georgia fans, if he was coming back another year, would you want him? Maybe, maybe not. Come back on the other side. We'll keep our free-for-all Friday going. If you got something you want to bring to the conversation, you can call Alabama One hotline at 205-342-9904.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no active wrecks as we crank up our Friday morning. They're looking pretty good on the roadways. Now, if you do see conditions, of course, give me a call, 205-886-8886. If you want a great deal on a new or used vehicle, you need to go to Townsend Nissan. They're your hometown dealer, and they got just what you need. I'm Captain Ray.
Riverside. Right now, you can get free carpet installation from the Home Depot. So while we're putting in your new carpet, you'll have more time to take care of the lawn, get started on dinner, or just lay down and relax on your new carpet after it's installed. Get your free carpet installation started with the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Minimum purchase of $4.99. Exclusions apply. U.S. only. See store for details.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're starting to speak another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
I wanted to know why some people who get COVID-19 get it so bad. I found out it may be because they have a high risk factor, such as heart disease, diabetes, being overweight, smoking, and asthma. Even if symptoms feel mild, these factors can increase your risk of COVID-19 turning severe. So if you're at high risk and test positive, there are things you can do, like asking your healthcare provider if an authorized oral treatment is right for you. Learn about an option at treatcovid19.com. This message is sponsored by Pfizer.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather noticeably colder today. Breezy with a mixture of clouds and sunshine. The chance of a few scattered light snow flurries. The high 47. For tonight, clear with the low at 26. For tomorrow, a good supply of sunshine. The high very close to 50. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 42 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Scott Smith and Sophmark Design, doing business for 17 plus years, specializing in graphic design services, commercial printing, promotional products, advertising specialties, and so much more. Basically, any and everything you would need to advertise, promote, and grow your business. Through strong partnerships, strong customer service, and creative ideas, they'll help you market and grow your business. Give Scott a call at 205-292-4680 or email scottis@comcast.net and visit them online at sophmarkdesign.com.
Interact with the Martin Houston Show by calling us at 205-342-9904 or tuning into the Martin Houston Show on Facebook.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9. It's Martin and Xavier waiting on your call, your conversation, and your topic. We wrapped up that Stetson Bennett conversation. Moving on to all things Alabama. We got basketball conversation we can hit. There's quite a few different topics we can get to. Before we get into those, let's bring in Chuck Hunt. You're in with the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. What's on your mind?
Good Friday morning. Hello, good Friday morning to you all. And I know it's a free fall Friday. And I was going to talk about after Monday night's game. What I looked at that. It was a lesson be taught in the game. You know, I look at in the age of transfer portal and NIL. People looking at these skilled players, but that game showed the importance of offensive line play. Being in the trenches, how important it is to have offensive linemen and defensive linemen being the physicality, jaw right there, and not taking anything away from TCU. They have a great ball club, but it showed they might need to start looking at finding some offensive linemen because Georgia was just pushing them around, and it just I look at those things and it's just like I just look at it, you see it time. Look at what happened with the Cincinnati Bengals Super Bowl, and look at even your school. Look at Alabama. What happened just with them playing Georgia? Not having an offensive line. You're all known for great offensive linemen, and having to find some more linemen to replace. I thought it was Jackson State, many others, but it shows you how important line play is.
Yeah, Chuck. No matter what era of football you look at. If you can't win in the trenches, you're not gonna win very often. There's not very many championships out there you go look at where a team wasn't dominant in one and or both sets of linemen, offensive and defensive linemen. And once again, Georgia showed that, because if you don't have the linemen on defense, you can't take away the run. If you don't have the offensive lineman, you can't establish the run. And Georgia was able to do what they wanted to do in that game offensively because TCU just did not have the defensive horses to take away anything from Georgia, and they had what they wanted. Plus, if the Big 12 is going to be relevant in a championship type environment, they're going to have to figure out a defense other than 3-3-5 if you're going to win against the big boys. So and we went to some of that. We didn't call it 3-3-5, but we went to a lot of times where we ended up with a variation of where we had two down linemen and Will Anderson. So we kind of in some ways did some of that. But anyway, anything else, Chuck, before I let you go?
No, that was all I would talk about. Show you how well it worked and made that really opened things up for Stetson Bennett. But from Max Duggan, it just didn't. It really showed up. Things exposed itself Monday night. That's all I want to leave you with. You all have a great weekend.
All right, thanks, Chuck. Have a blessed day, sir. All right, X. Conversation, man. There's, like I said, there's a lot of conversation we can get to. You have to have some horses there, but let's kind of look at a couple things, rapid fire topics. Now, I don't want us to just skim over them, but Alabama, all season long, we talked about needing new coordinators. Does Alabama change their coordinators? Which one will we hear about first? And where do we go if we make a change?
Yeah, when you look at, I was really high on Garrett Riley, and Dabo swept in and got him, and kudos to Dabo and what he's going to be able to do with Garrett Riley. I think he's going to be a big pickup for Cade Klubnik and his development. I've heard the name Jeff Lebby a good bit, and I think he'd be a good fit at Bama. I do not think we need to bring Bill O'Brien back, but there's a couple other options. You've seen the Cliff Kingsbury rumors start to swirl since he was let go by the Cardinals. I'm not a big fan of that move either. Just simply, when you look at the SEC, you have to be able to run the ball, and I think Cliff, with as great as a passing game, he would be able to bring to Alabama. You still see struggles with his run teams from Texas Tech and the Cardinals. So I'm going Lebby at this point, and hopefully we can make it happen.
Yeah. Well, with the Kingsbury, the other thing is how long are you going to have Kingsbury? Kingsbury is probably a one and done type of coordinator. And having the young quarterbacks we have, I don't think we need to go through another one of these eras where we have multiple coordinators. And people may be saying I'm reaching here, but look at what happened to Jalen Hurts when he had the same coordinator in back-to-back seasons. He's just a better quarterback. I mean, he's matured too, but he's had consistent coaching. And not a different coach, different coordinator, different offense, different scheme. And Saban says, hey, they come in and run our offense. Well, this offense we saw last year and the year before doesn't look like the offenses we saw before. So I have to disagree with that sentiment. And you say Riley, he swooped in and got Riley. I don't know if it was a swoop in. You don't fire a guy one day and then announce his replacement unless that conversation's been going for a while. You have to understand Garrett Riley has probably been a name that's been on everybody's list. So this conversation probably has been happening for quite a while. I doubt very seriously that this was a since Monday's game type of conversation that happens. I'm sure that Dabo had pictured that pointed in as that. As far as where we go, I don't know. I'm gonna tell you what my fear is. My fear is that we're gonna have Judge. That Saban's gonna go back to his same, pole, same tree, and bring in a guy from the NFL, a guy that he has familiarity with. And Judge is the guy who was a quarterback coach, but he's coached here. He was a Giants coach. Don't be surprised if we don't have a lot more of the same. And if we do, how that make you feel? We'll talk about that and more as we get back on track right here on the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. How you feeling if the Tide doesn't make a move and if the Tide doesn't get some young up-and-coming coordinator that you think will stick around for a couple of years or so? Do we need to find an offensive version of a Pete Golding that has some creativity and will have some freedom, or do we go with the older guy that not necessarily is going to be on the list of being out of here within a year or two? we'll talk about that. We'll talk about comparison between Georgia and Alabama. We can talk about young wide receivers. We can talk basketball. It's up to you right here on the Martin Houston Show on a free-for-all Friday with Martin and Xavier.
This is a Town Square Media Tide 100.9 Sports Update.
I'm Kim Rankin with your Tide Sports Update. Former University of Alabama running back Ahmad Galloway has passed away at the age of 42. The Alabama Crimson Tide basketball team beat the Arkansas Razorbacks 84-69 to remain undefeated in SEC play.
This has been a Town Square Media Tide 100.9 Sports Update.
Run it again!
For more info on these stories and more, download the Tide 100.9 app.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no active wrecks as we crank up our Friday morning. They're looking pretty good on the roadways. Now, if you do see conditions, of course, give me a call, 205-886-8886. If you want a great deal on a new or used vehicle, you need to go to Townsend Nissan. They're your hometown dealer, and they got just what you need. I'm Captain Ray.
Hello, this is Martin Houston with the Martin Houston Show, and I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors, Overflow Express Wash. Their mission is to provide great customer service with a showroom clean car and an exceptional customer service experience. They have the basic car wash that starts at $7, but you need to check out the premium wash packages, which start as low as $12 and go up to $20. They also have a membership wash club that you can get for start $23.99 going up to $39.99. In other words, just double the regular premium package, drop a penny, and you can be one of the great members of Overflow Express Wash. My family and I keep our cars looking good inside and out by using Overflow Express Wash. They're located on Skyland Boulevard right next door to Alabama 1, or you can find them online at overflowexpresswash.com. Andy Phillips and his team look forward to making you a part of their team.
I studied Spanish in college and never got fluent, but then I tried Babbel.
Want the most effective way to learn another language? In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel's bite-sized lessons will have you learning another language in as little as 3 weeks.
Babbel gets you speaking quickly about things you actually talk about in the real world.
University studies have shown that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a semester of college Spanish. If you want to learn a new language, there's no better way than Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try Babbel for free. That's Babbel.com.
Don't miss the gun show at the Cottondale VFW this weekend. There'll be guns, knives, ammo, antique weapons, and survival supplies to buy, sell, or trade. Gun show hours are Saturday 9 to 5 and Sunday 10 to 4 at the Cottondale VFW, 7001 University Boulevard.
Keep it locked into Tide 100.9 for more of the Martin Houston Show with Martin Houston and X's and O's Sports, Xavier Houston.
Alabama won, doing things the right way. Go check out alabama1.org. You can find out more about our great credit card promotion. Take the Alabama One Credit Card Challenge today. Compare rates and see if you can save on interest. Also, got a great option coming, and we'll give you more details. Going to have a swipe and win option, activate and win option, as well as the more you swipe, the more you win. We'll be giving you more details about that in the coming days. So stay tuned for more. Go ahead and get that new credit card, though, because you can transfer that balance over for free. No fees, no costs there in terms of no costs, no fees on the balance transfer, along with no annual fees and no cash advance fees. That's the Alabama One credit card, two versions. There's a fixed rate and a variable rate. The variable rate starting as low as 10.99. Hey, go ahead and get it and take advantage of that now, because we know that the Fed may be raising rates here pretty soon. So go ahead and take advantage of it while they are as low as they are. And we'll tell you more about that each and every day. But in the meantime, you can go to alabama1.org and find out more. It's Alabama One together. What's your one? All right, lots of conversation. X Curtis said, we don't want anything. We don't need anything resembling Golding. Actually, when we look at offense, here's a couple. I'm gonna go and list off the top offensive teams statistically. And you got the Tennessee Volunteers sitting at number 1, Washington Huskies sitting at number 2. They had 6,700 yards passing, less than 2,000 rushing. Would you want that guy? Where Tennessee had almost 2,600 yards rushing and 4,000 passing. USC, 7,000 yards of total offense. 7,000 total yards, almost 2,400 rushing yards. UCLA, 6,500 yards rushing, and appears to be the most balanced of all those top teams. They had 3,400 yards passing and just under 3,100 yards rushing. Do you go look at that guy and try to figure out who that guy is with the balance? Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs have almost 500 more total yards than everybody else. Do you hear that? 75. Of course, guess what? They played 15 games. See? So could be a little deceptive there. Tennessee did theirs in 13 games. USC did theirs in 14. So, average per game, Tennessee clearly the leader of the pack. But Georgia pretty balanced, 4,400 and 3,000. Do you go get a guy like a Monken, an older guy who understands the importance of the run game, but yet has the creativity and the flexibility to utilize whatever a team does best? Then that's the top 5. The next 5 is Oregon, Western Kentucky, Ole Miss, Ohio State, and Florida State. That's your top 10 offenses. Sitting just out of the top 10 offenses is number 11, Alabama. So, do we go after a Monken type coordinator that's not a young guy but gets it? You watch how he was able to take a Stetson Bennett and no big time wide receivers, a big time tight end, big time running backs, and have an offense that you had a hard time stopping because he maximized the talent that was there at X.
Yeah, I would go after a guy that can maximize the talent that you have on your team, be balanced with it. And Alabama has playmakers at every position: wide receiver, running back, tight end. So I like the balance. I like the ability to include everybody, where you don't necessarily have to rely on one singular guy. And so I think that's the key when you're looking at who you're looking to replace, that can take advantage of, hey, this week it's the running backs, next week it's the wide receivers, whoever. So I would definitely look for the balance in my offense, especially playing in the SEC.
In balance, sometimes people think balance is just, you got a 55-45. Joe, you and I talked about this before. Statistically, sometimes numbers don't. Your feeling doesn't necessarily match what's actually happening. And balance is being able to run it if you need to run it and pass it if you need to pass it, and being good enough to do whichever one the team gives you. What's your thoughts on that? All right. Joe may be answering the phone, so we'll get back to we'll come back. If Joe, if you want to chime in when you get back off of that phone call, just let me know. The other side of that, X, is I think Alabama's biggest struggle is the way Coach Saban drives his coaches, X. I think it's taking us out of the young guy market in some ways. I think we have to get a Pete Golding type, who is a young up-and-coming guy who has shown signs, but he's not at a major school and not going to be hired at a major school, or an older proven guy. I think these Rileys of the world, we may be out of that because they want to have family. They want to have more time. And unless that changes within this mindset of the Alabama program, I think we could have a hard time getting the top proven young guys in here offensively and defensively. Maybe that's why we hadn't changed. Got a couple calls. We're going to get into the conversation. Pat, you're in with Martin and Xavier on the Alabama One hotline. What's on your mind, sir?
Good morning. Defensive coordinator. That what about has any been any much mention? I've heard some of Muschamp. That if we can't get Pruitt, Muschamp would be the next best option, in my opinion.
I know Curtis has Curtis has nicknamed him. Curtis Lewis has nicknamed him Potty Mouth when he talks about coordinators, but there has been some sentiment around get Schumann from Georgia. If you can't get Schumann, get Muschamp. Both of those guys know Saban's system, but I think Schumann, to me, is probably a better fit because he has some new ideas, I think. The question is, would he be able to implement those? So that's my thought on that, Pat.
Yeah, I got you. I'd heard that. I mean, because Kirby has two of them over there. It's not fair.
Well, but here's the question. Well, he's just taking Saban's model. Saban has always had a coordinator in waiting. Would we as Bama fans be excited to have Grantham replace Golding? Would you like that fit? But the question, Pat, really is, if we get either one of those guys, are we getting a new guy next year? If Schumann, let's say Muschamp comes over and does well, is he not going to be right back on the head coaching block? Schumann comes over and does well, and Schumann comes over and does well, and Alabama is back in the national championship, and the defense looks great. Is Schumann now on the head coaching circuit? So, are we gonna get a guy that we're gonna be replacing if we get either one of those guys in 2024? So,
anybody we get good, if he's good, then you got to look at they're going to have to be replaced sooner or later. However, that we need somebody good to write this defense. I mean, Coach Saban just needs some assistance. That he is the jail, but he has to have assistants around him that are eagles. You can't soar with eagles if you're working with turkeys.
Well, I can tell you, Pat, Alabama over the past few years have had a lot. Have had 4 or 5 coordinators on their staff every year, former defensive coordinators. Kelly was on this staff. Was Kelly on? Kelly was on the staff when Florida State won the championship. Pruitt, groomed him. So, you had Sunseri, former coordinator. You had Grantham, former coordinator. You have all these guys that have been around here with Pete. So I just think I don't know where we go, but Curtis Lewis said, hey, we've always had that issue that people were on the hook for great coordinators. We have, but we haven't. We say that, but how long was Kirby the coordinator before he was a head coach? How long was Pruitt the coordinator before he got his gig? And you didn't miss anything. And that's the biggest thing is those guys were all on staff, even though they left fairly close to each other. There was some consistency. And if you replace Golding and then replace the next guy, I don't know if you'll have the consistency we've had. But I would take a really good guy for a year to get the ship right, even if we had a great chance of losing that guy. So I hear what Curtis is saying, and I agree with that. Thanks, Pat. Robert from Birmingham, you're in with Martin and Xavier on the Alabama One hotline. What's on your mind, sir? Is Robert from Birmingham still there?
I think you dropped. I'm sorry, Mark.
Oh, that's okay. But yeah, when you look at this, man, there's a lot to get to. But Joe, statistically, I'd had that conversation, give you a chance to respond. When you look at Alabama and balance and all of that, what would be your number one criteria for your offensive coordinator?
It's scoring points. And then really just development of my offensive players.
Yeah.
And so can you score points and develop them for the next level to make it an attractive offense to want to come play in?
Yeah. That's a great point. Scoring points is ultimately how you do it. But I think the other part of that is when you have to run the clock, when you need a 4-minute offense and you need to keep the other team from getting the ball. We hadn't talked about that element. That simply that element alone to this team, and we win. We're in the college football playoffs. We didn't have that type of offense last year, and it could have been a difference maker because we scored enough points against Tennessee to win, is what people say, but they scored more, so we didn't score enough to win. I'm being facetious there, but my point is, if we could have took the clock and took the air out of it instead of kicking the ball back to them or finishing out that fourth quarter, we end up winning that game. But anyway, coming back on the other side, we'll do a rapid fire on a couple other topics to get to. And like I said, hey, we're officially into the off season now. So we can pretty much have a free for all every day, but this is a free for all Friday with Martin and Xavier on Tide 100.9. More conversation as we close out this Friday edition of the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no active wrecks as we crank up our Friday morning. They're looking pretty good on the roadways. Now, if you do see conditions, of course, give me a call, 205-886-8886. If you want a great deal on a new or used vehicle, you need to go to Townsend Nissan. They're your hometown dealer, and they got just what you need. I'm Captain Ray.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Friday morning. First responders in Selma and across the state spent the night double-checking the rubble left by tornadoes to make sure nobody was overlooked. Today, emergency management agencies will begin damage assessments to determine the storm's impact on communities across the state, like Oak Hill Village in Hale County. That's where 30 properties were damaged. Greene and Hale counties were struck by twisters for the second time in just 6 weeks and the fourth time in a year. 6 people died in Otaga County, and Selma was devastated. I'm Don Hertley.
Hello, this is Martin Houston with the Martin Houston Show, and I want to tell you about Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing. If you're looking for a way to add value to your home, make your flower beds pop, make your landscaping stand out from your neighbors, then Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing can help you do just that. They have numerous styles, but they feature the Moroccan Stone Curb series, which includes 4 great styles and unlimited color choices. That's Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing. They are the one that can help you stand out from your neighbors. Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing, 205-331-6823. You may also find yourself with the need for a custom size stone or custom shaped stone. Then Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing can help with that as well. Paul Fuller and his team are waiting on your call right now for that free quote. And if you tell them that Martin Houston with the Martin Houston Show told you to stop by, you'll get a big discount. So call Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing at 205-331-6823 or visit them online at Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing, LLC.
365, 24/7. You'll find road and utility crews, tow trucks, law enforcement, and first responders working along Alabama's roadway.
We're making improvements and helping our communities stay connected.
We're working hard to make sure you're safe on the road. Now we need your help to make sure we're safe too.
Alabama's move over law requires you to move over a lane when you see flashing lights on the roadside. And if you can't safely move over, please slow down.
Visit DriveSafeAlabama.org, brought to you by the Alabama Department of Transportation, Alabama Broadcasters Association, and this station.
In a collision, easy decision. Make one call to one name. Mesrano, 206-6300.
No representation related to quality of legal services to be performed is greater than quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
Work is a part of all of us. Working drives us to push beyond what we thought was imaginable and allows us to come together again for the things that really matter. That's why the Alabama Department of Labor And the Alabama Career Center system is here to help you discover bigger opportunities than ever before. Visit your local career center or alabamaworks.alabama.gov. Funding provided by the USDOL, ETA, and Federal WIOA, an Equal Opportunity Employer Program. Auxiliary aids and services available upon request. Brought to you by this station and the Alabama Broadcasters Association.
Welcome back to the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, welcome back into the Martin Houston Show. Martin and Xavier, thanks to great folks over at Taco Casa. We're able to do this each and every day. Go check them out for lunch and on dinner. That's Taco Casa. Taco Casa, quality, taste, and value on the biggest cactus in town. Oh man, lots of conversation to get to. We'll say some of it as we make further into the conversation. Into the off season, we'll get more conversation going. Virgil Williams did have a comment. He said, whoever we get as an OC needs to talk Saban into keeping the foot on the gas. If we get a big lead, put in the young guys and continue to run the offense, get the young guns ready and keep them engaged. That's how you develop players. We had too many times where Saban said we put it in the tank. Why, when we have kids need reps to get better, it doesn't make sense to me. Can see that and agree with that conversation as well. Curtis Lewis asked a question, who's the coordinator at Coastal Carolina? I do not know the answer to that question, but he's been a pretty good offensive-minded guy and would be one of those guys who may be hungry to get up to this next level, but has proven himself at a D1 school. So, hey, maybe that is a surprise there. As we go into the weekend, I want you guys to be thinking, hey, does Alabama do we hear news about at least one coaching change over the weekend? Yes or no, X, Joe? Do we hear about a change at Alabama in either one of those positions over the weekend?
I'm going to go no, probably not.
No, probably not. All right, Joe, you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go no as well.
No as well. I'm going to go out on a limb and say we hear some news. Does it finalize? Maybe not. Does the Pete Golding conversation kick back up, or do we hear anything with Bill O'Brien with the fact that he has started the conversation? We ain't gonna hear anything about Pete Golding. I'm almost certain because recruiting is not finished and Saban ain't gonna want that to get out. That's my thoughts. But if we keep waiting on that, will we miss our opportunity to get the right guy in the house? George from Macon, you're in. What's on your mind, sir?
Just a few comments, Martin. Thanks for taking my call. You were talking about some of the yards for the guys at USC and UCLA. I don't know if I want them because their yards are produced by defenses that are very, very soft. And I don't see that you'll get anything of what you want with hard-nosed attacking offenses on the ground. Another thing is maybe the reason we didn't run the ball well enough is that our offensive line, was kind of soft in my opinion. We didn't attack. We caught the defensive linemen instead of attacked them. And I think that if we'd attacked a little bit better and had a more aggressive offensive line, which it looks like after we've done our recruiting this year, Wolford's going to have that, a more attacking offensive line. And
George, on that statement, our offensive line aggressiveness is based on the play calling. When you run RPOs, the offensive line is going to be catchers versus attackers. So if we,
I agree with you, Martin, but maybe because we couldn't block well enough, we were bracketed into running RPOs. I listen to you every morning, and I've heard this conversation, and the times when we did attack and run the ball, it was successful. But it wasn't against the stronger defense.
Because we didn't call it. If you run the same RPO, we've been in that mode forever. We'll have to agree to disagree on that one. I think that when you look at what this team does, what defenses did we play that were aggressive? that we couldn't do that again.
When we played Tennessee, I think that their defense was very aggressive. They ran a lot of stunts, and they were very successful. I thought that they were good, and they kept us from being able to run the clock. And I'll agree with you to a point where our play calling, to be able to run the ball successfully, you got to continue to run it, even at times when you're not successful. You got to get that rhythm going and get,
correct,
the line and the rhythm between the back, searching for the hole and blocking. We got to get that rhythm going. So I'm not really disagreeing with you. I'm kind of partly agreeing with you, but I do know that it looks like our offensive line is not as big and as hungry as it had been because we went to a downsized guys a little bit so they can block in space for the RPO.
Yeah.
That's kind of my feeling on that one.
Hey, and I got to get out of here. But take a few seconds and give you a final thought there, George.
Okay. I do believe we need to tweak the coaching staff, but if we listen to all that I've been hearing, I don't see how we won a game the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, we didn't, Coach Saban didn't know how to develop players and didn't know how to choose assistant coaches. And I'm just taking that, just from what I hear, but also a little bit of tongue in cheek. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks. Hey, we'll get more conversation on that and we'll respond to George. It's not about, hey, listen, if you want to win games, then Alabama doesn't need to change their coaching staff. And Alabama's been great. But if you want to win championships, do we have the staff and the coaches to do that? Do we have the players to do that? That's the question. The standard is no longer in Tuscaloosa. It's in Athens. Are we at that standard in coaching and our players? Hey, we're going to get to that basketball, but give me your thoughts on LSU, Bama. Quickly.
I'm going Bama, of course. I believe Alabama is on a run, and it's going to take a lot to beat them. As long as they come out and play their game, they'll come out on top.
Yeah, LSU coming into Coleman Coliseum. Alabama gets another win, moves to 5-0, drops LSU to 1-4 in the SEC. The Crimson Tide and their coach keeps it rolling on the hardwood. We'll talk about Nate Oates, and with another big victory, does the conversation ramp up that this is a one and done? Not one and done, but after this season, we'll be looking for a basketball head coach, especially with conversations around delaying that new Coliseum, as Nate Oates has now thrown it out there, that would help our basketball program. We'll talk more about it. We'll talk more about all the other topics we talked about. We appreciate it. Can't get it all in. That's why we come back every Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 a.m. for the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. I'm Martin Houston. Remember this, trust in the Lord, always lean not your own understanding, always acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Hey, come visit the Harvest Church in Coker at 10 a.m. for worship, 9 a.m. Bible study. Come on out. We'd love to have you. Harvest Church, loving God, loving people, and we'd love to love on you this Sunday. Have a blessed day out there, everybody, and Roll Tide.
Thank you for listening to the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. Tide 100.